Welcome to the next episode of Lockdown and Resilience and COVID-19 and all of that. I am talking to Karl Thaning, who is an actor based in Cape Town. You might recognize him from Showmax's series. It's currently on Showmax, The Girl from St. Agnes. It's a whodunit that's binge-worthy, and he plays someone who isn't really what he seems. Without giving it all away. He's also Netflix's Outlander. He has been in Binnenlander. He has been in movies, Dread, The Dark Tower with Matthew McConaughey. I saw you in that. And he's also an Olympic swimmer. You represented South Africa at the Commonwealth Games and at the Olympic Games. So I thought Karl would be a great person to talk to today because Karl is serious. And he is a guy who I know thinks quite deeply about life. And so what we're going to do is just have a chat about his experience of lockdown, kind of what's got him through it and what's been his struggle. So Karl, thank you very much for taking the time to be with me. I see you have lockdown hair.
Yeah, sorry about that. Hi. Thanks for calling me. I definitely have lockdown hair. But I've never been able to control my hair ever, so why start now?
So tell me, what have you been up to since all of the things that I've been reading about from Girls from St. Agnes and all of that kind of thing? What's been on your radar?
The Girl from St. Agnes came out last year, January.
Was that long ago already?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
I saw you plastered all over Oxford Road in Johannesburg. I don't know if you know your face was all along the streets, and Oxford Road's where the hookers hang out. So it was you and the hookers.
A watchful eye over their shoulders.
Exactly.
In my someone did send
me
a
photo of that. Do you want we can show people what you look like. There, that was Karl. Look at you.
Yeah, stern, looking over hookers' shoulders.
This was you before lockdown. Look how happy you were before lockdown.
How young I am.
I'm still young. Okay, we're all still young.
So since then, I carry on acting. I direct a lot. I direct a lot of corporate videos, digital learning. I work for a company called The Training Room Online, which has been part of the digital revolution for about, they've been involved now for 12 years. And we do a wide variety of videos for companies around the world, for organizations, government organizations, schools, universities. So that keeps me busy. That's kind of my day job. And obviously I act.
Yeah. In between all of that.
Yes. I balance the two.
And now what has happened? Obviously lockdown has hit, but even before that, COVID-19 was hitting. And what has happened because you're based in Cape Town, and obviously up until March, April, I remember well, was acting season when this is where you made your money for winter. What happened to the acting industry and what is going on?
I think it was looking good. We were going to have a lot of shoots coming up. So it was really dreadful timing. There were a lot of films and TV series that were going to happen. So COVID-19 has obviously put a complete stop to all of that.
Yeah. And your training job that you're doing, are you still able to carry on with that at least?
So I've been really lucky that the company, we can all work remotely. Obviously I can't direct. Strangely, we're developing ways of directing remotely where maybe I would have a camera crew overseas and through software I would direct from here. I know of a work colleague who's directing some commercials in Asia from London. So he will sit in London, the crew will be in China, and he'll sit with clients around the world via platforms no different to this. So I haven't done any directing since the lockdown, but I've been writing for our clients, which has kept me busy, which has been great. So I've literally worked a Monday to Friday as per normal from home.
Okay.
the joy of working from home is that you get more time in the day because you're not traveling. Yes, I think there are many positives, and the company has certainly seen that. A lot of companies, I feel, have seen that. One can stop micromanaging and becoming more outcomes based.
Yeah.
The problem, obviously, is one has to also recognize that there's a time to shut down. Because I find with the computer near me, it's very easy to find yourself answering emails at 10 at night when you wouldn't typically do that.
Yeah.
But that's also great. I mean, the company's been running at 110%, I think, during the lockdown, which is really good. But it is a digital learning company, so
yeah, so it is all on the digital space. So that's interesting you talk about that, because it's one of the things, you know, obviously I'm coming at this from a resilience place and trying to see how we stay resilient. And one of the things that I see, my partner Frank is also works for a digital bank. And what I've seen now is, because he no longer has a commute to work doesn't seem to end. So he starts at 7 in the morning and then will sometimes finish off 8, 9 o'clock at night. He works with Vietnam and he works with all these other places around. And so what happens is that you're carrying on for all of these hours, not realizing that you're on. It's almost like it's become boundaryless. And one of the things that they're finding is that people are actually becoming a bit more depressed because of the boundarylessness, if that's a word, because one of the things that we need to do is put structure into our days. So we need to make sure that we are waking up at certain times, that we are busy getting dressed, and not staying in our pajamas all day, going to work, and then also having an end time where we are able to just shut off from work, because that is the problem with working from home. Everyone says they're so much more productive. Well, not everyone. I end up spending more time on Netflix. Don't tell anyone I work for about that. But the reality is that for those people who are able to work in silos and focus, it's actually creating its own kind of set of problems. So while you're more productive, it can lead to some kind of sense of depression. I don't know if you found that.
No, I can definitely recognize that. And I think that what you said is crucial. And it's certainly something I've made myself aware of, which is structure. I think before the lockdown, structure kind of existed as imposed by other people.
Yeah.
Whereas now one has to self-impose that, which is more difficult. It's not within my personality really to self-impose structure. I am structured, but that is created by other things. My normal, life before this, it's wake up, do a few things at home, drive to work a full day, drive. For me, I would go and play water polo, drive there, play for 2 hours, drive home, cook dinner. The structure was set up by other institutions, whereas now I have to set up my own structure, and I don't believe that that's ever been within my personality. So it's been good to learn that, but it's been good to enforce it as well, which isn't always very easy. I've certainly had days where typically I would get to my computer and know, okay, now I have to write 2 scripts for a client. My deadline is tomorrow afternoon, and then kind of have writer's block. And when I get that in an office environment, I will then start Googling and finding things that will unlock it. I will play music. I always play music, and I find a piece that I think will be along the lines of what I need to write. So I never choose music that has lyrics. So I will take an orchestral piece, and I'll find a rhythm that I feel is appropriate to what's needed. So if it's a younger audience, obviously it'll be a more modern piece. If it's an older, more conservative audience, I'll look for something that was written. So I would do that in the office, and then certainly I would break the kind of block. What tends to happen at home is it's easy to say, all right, well, let me just go and chill out somewhere else for half an hour, and find another room. And then half an hour doesn't stay half an hour. So I found difficulties there, and I have to really be strict with myself. I even
but that has its benefits as well, though. That's the thing is, I know some people who in lockdown, what they've loved about it from working from home is that they can do their 7 o'clock work until 2 o'clock, go and have a nap in the afternoon, and get, you know, 4:30, get back to work and work until 7 o'clock at night. And that for them has been a game changer, because they're finding they're so much more productive, because they are able to kind of use their own time as they want to, and kind of regenerate as they want to on their own.
Completely, I couldn't agree more. I have done that a lot, where if I, as I said, if I know, for example, that the deadline is tomorrow afternoon, I know what I need to do by 5 p.m. tomorrow.
Okay.
So it means I can be more forgiving, but it just means that whatever I lose now, I have to make up later. So it does mean that tonight I can sit from 7 p.m. till midnight. You know, and that's a good 5-hour window, which, along with maybe the 3 hours or 4 hours earlier in the day, makes a full day. It doesn't really matter where one does it, as long as one does it. So that has been great. I think that flexibility has always been key, and certainly will be, I think, within the new work environments that will happen after this. I think things are definitely going to change after this. I can't see companies going back to wanting to travel to see clients now that clients are using, you know, these video conferencing platforms so much. I know that with some of our clients overseas, they just didn't want to use these platforms, and therefore were insistent on staff traveling to see them, or them traveling to see us. And now that kind of mental speed bump, let's call it, has been driven over, I think that there's a lot more acceptance of, okay, we can do this. I can actually get to know you through the camera, through the internet. Whereas obviously the handshake was so important, and getting a feel for who this person is. Is this person honest? Is this person really a hard worker, or are they just really good in front of a camera at fooling me? I think that's been the problem. So remote working will certainly take over, I imagine.
I'm more of an extrovert, and so I get my energy from being around people. And the problem is that when I don't get to spend time, that's why I'm doing these videos and things like that, it's just to connect, is that when I don't spend time with people, I overthink. And when you overthink, you start getting into the I shoulds. So you start saying, I should be doing more online courses, because I'm reading all over the internet at the moment. Everyone on social media is posting, oh, look what I just did on Udemy. Oh my gosh, look, I just baked banana bread. I've just done this, you know, and I sit down and I'm like, well, I just managed to put on my tackies instead of my slippers, and I feel like I've achieved my day, you know. So what happens is that you tend to get into this I should scenario. And the problem with getting into the I should scenario is that you do eventually burn yourself out, and especially if you're on your own, because you're putting on, so we're talking about the structure and all of those things, but the problem is that you're putting on so much pressure onto yourself to be what should be, because you're working on your own. I know when I work on my own, I feel guilty for the moments when I'm not working, even though I'll work until 7 at night, but because it's 3 in the afternoon. And I think it's important to realize that we need to not overthink, that we need to not sit here and say, I should be doing this, and beating ourselves up when we don't necessarily get there.
No, I totally, yeah, and I think we need to be self-forgiving as well. I struggle with that. I suffer from the guilt. If I'm not feeling well and I need to take a sick day for work, I will sit at home, you know, constantly thinking I should have gone in. I'm not sick enough to have taken the day off.
And that's almost heightened by being on lockdown, because we have no way of proving that we're really sick, or, you know, I say I have a migraine, and I think everyone's going to think that I'm just watching Netflix. So we do have kind of guilt that goes around. Being on your own, how has, in this lockdown, how has that affected you? How would you say your mindset has been? Sure, you've got work as a distraction, if you want to put it that way, but has it been easy going for you? Has this been something that you've been angry about? I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but how has the lockdown kind of experience been for you?
I wouldn't want to lie and say it's been easy. I'm very much a person who spends my life outdoors and not in my house. I sleep in my home. I tend to spend a good 14 hours a day outside of my apartment. So this has been it's been a radical adjustment for me. The first month, I think there was a novelty about it, I guess. There was a camaraderie that was happening within South Africa. There were many positives, and people were adjusting. And I think just the fact that it was new, and maybe people were finding out more about themselves. And well, I shouldn't talk about people, myself. There was that didn't last long, and then there was a period where I recognized, I think after about three and a half weeks, I'm talking to the couch. I mean, I'm talking to furniture, and I wasn't sure if they were or were not answering back. You look back and you kind of go, did I just say that out loud? And then you don't really know. But I certainly, with a lot of friends, we were doing a lot of video conferencing, checking up, having conversations. Then I went through a period of that becoming quite frustrating, where people be cooking and literally walking you through what they were doing, which is not a normal conversation. Normally you ask people how they are and what they've been up to, and now they're literally telling you, right, well, I'm just putting in one little pinch of salt, and it's not really information that interests me. But as I said,
it's like a level of connection that almost sometimes feels forced.
It does. It does. I think as well, you can't have, when you sit with someone in a pub or in a restaurant, it's okay to not say anything for a while and just kind of absorb the moment. You can't do that in these scenarios. And if you don't do it, it means you're totally disconnected, or it suggests you're totally disconnected, which isn't the case. So there is a pressure to occupy the air, like it's a radio station.
Yeah, no dead air allowed.
Yeah, so I find interaction it is limited to the real world. But from a work point of view, I mean, it was great to be busy. I think that kept me sane. I had to put structure in, so I had to create exercise. I've been exercising minimum 5 days a week since the beginning of lockdown. So obviously before we moved to level 4, where exercise was allowed between 6 and 9 in the morning, or is allowed between 6 and 9 in the morning, I got very, very creative within the apartment complex I live in, and I had to do that. I think it was one of the few things that kept me sane. But I mean, just going back, I definitely had very frustrating days where, and the worst part is, I think, the lack of awareness of kind of going, I'm frustrated and I don't know why, because today is no different from yesterday. Nothing has happened. There hasn't been a catalyst or an event that's changed my day, but I am not in where I was yesterday. I'm largely fairly upbeat, but I have had one or two where there's a frustration, and then when I don't know where it comes from.
Yeah. And that's where it's what you were saying earlier when you were talking about the lockdown. There was that sense of camaraderie that happened, where we were in this together. There were all those Facebook posts where it was like, come guys, let's do this. And then when the extra 2 weeks got announced, I saw a little bit of a shift in people saying, okay, this is not necessarily where we're going. And then I think the real, when it was the decision to move to level 4, and there was then all that vacillating around tobacco, around all these other things, people still couldn't drink, and people started seeing that the politicians were taking away rights as opposed to now they're protecting us. Whereas there's been a definite shift in kind of just the if you had to kind of say the smell of lockdown, it's shifted from being where it was this camaraderie to where we are now politically angry. I find myself getting angry, and we were talking yesterday to Brent, and I was saying that I've almost had to come to this place of acceptance, because or else it drives me mad. I feel so out of control.
And I think as humans, we need we need dates. So for the first period, let's call it level 5. It obviously wasn't called that at the time. It was just the hard lockdown. We said, great, let's do our part. Let's try and save people's lives. And pretty much everyone I knew was as strict as can be, not breaking a single rule. I certainly wasn't. I only went out for essentials and did that maybe once a week or once every 8, 9 days, with the exception of getting very creative in my apartment with exercise. Um, I had a very minimalist life of activities, let's call it that way. And then I think we were asked, sorry, but I need to, as the president said, I'm sorry, but I need to ask you to extend this. And that was fine. It was like, okay, another 2 weeks, I can do this. And then level 4 really felt to me a lot like level 5. It was difficult to distinguish the difference. And then so it was a way of not saying, I need to ask you to do more. I think we were also promised, told, right, we've made our mistakes. We're aware of certain things. And I kind of felt, okay, great. You've recognized that 6 a.m. till 9 a.m. exercise window is not the best way of doing things, because where I've been exercising on a road nearby, it looks like the Two Oceans Marathon every morning. So it's hardly social distancing, it's hardly healthy. And I thought, okay, for sure now they're going to open up a window in the afternoon, less people on the road, it's healthier, and that didn't happen. And one doesn't need an infrastructure, you don't need to kind of inform anyone to get that infrastructure ready to exercise. You can just do it straight away. So that was strange, and I think very frustrating for most people I know. Obviously, next week we change and we can exercise freely, apparently, but there are still restrictions. People can now apparently practice religious activities under 50 people, but still, I don't think surfers can go for a surf, and that to me doesn't make sense.
So I hear all that, and that's exactly why I want to have these conversations, because it is so out of control and feels so out of our control. And I've seen it, especially now with the announcement of the less than 50 can have a religious gathering, but I can't go and, go to have a haircut.
Yeah, or visit your mother also.
Yeah, visit your mother. And it does feel, there's almost an absurdity that people are picking up in these. And so how do we deal with it because you're going to have to deal with it now, and you've already spoken that it frustrates you. What do you think we should do, or you're going to do, to be able to not drive yourself mad with this kind of stuff?
Well, a really wise philosopher will probably say, focus on the things you can control. Spend less time on the things you can't. And those are very, very wise words, but I haven't yet met someone who's done that. I certainly can't. While I do obviously try and put emotion into the things I can control, it's impossible for me not to get frustrated with strange things. I guess what South Africa really wants, or what I feel like people want, we want full transparency, which we're not getting. So let's go back. What does one do? I guess one has to really focus, as I said, on what you can control. I'm one of those people, I tend to make a lot of to-do lists. I need them, they motivate me. I like visually seeing what I want to accomplish or achieve, whether it be in a given day or whether it be over a period of time. Yeah. Long-term versus short-term goals. I constantly am writing to-do lists. And this is a period where it's difficult, isn't it? Because you say, well, I want to do this by a certain date, but there are things that are preventing one from doing that. So one can't put a date on it.
And you're exactly right, in terms of the control thing. And it's one of the things that I saw a therapist once, and it was probably the most helpful session. Was what she made me do was she made me draw a line down a piece of paper, and on the left-hand side I wrote down what I couldn't control. So, and there was stupid things like what people think about me, what the government's going to do, blah blah blah. And then I had to write down what I could control on the right-hand side. And she told me that I needed to spend more time focusing on the right-hand side. And I've actually done that in this lockdown. It's been something that's actually been really helpful, because one of the things is I got really angry when President Ramaphosa had his kind of second speech where I felt he didn't say anything. He just basically said, "I'm sorry, there's nothing
Oh,
to
the
say."
third one, I think. Yeah.
Was it the third one?
Yeah.
Yes. So, and I got really angry about that. And then I wondered why I was getting angry, and it was because of the uncertainty. Anxiety is always created by lack of control. And that's why there's so much anxiety going on. And if you're an anxious person, I'm assuming this is going to be, making it 10 times worse. So when I actually sat down and said, so what can I control? So I can control what time I wake up in the morning. I can control what time I go and exercise, and what exercise I do. I can control how much wine I have at night, while I still had wine. Or I could control, what carb intake I had. And it's getting as practical as that, and as almost as focused as that I think is what's important. It's those to-do lists, and not necessarily the to-do lists that say I should, but it's the to-do lists that say I can. Like, this is all I can do right now.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with saying I'm terrified. And one can be brave and say that.
Yeah.
It doesn't define if you're a brave person or not. If you say I'm scared. So I do believe in authenticity, and largely we've got scientists working 24/7 to try and give us some answers. We've got politicians working potentially 24/7 to try and create policies that make sense, that genuinely help people. Debatable, but a lot of people don't have the answers, and I think that's the key, is to be authentic, transparent, to say we're not quite sure, but we have a feeling that this might work. So bear with us, and if it doesn't work, we're going to admit it, and we're going to try something else.
And one of the things about resilience is that it's about learning to be comfortable with the I don't knows. And it's learning to be comfortable with the fact that there are questions. I forget who the writer was who said, live the questions, don't live the answers. And I think what we're doing the frustration is born out of the fact that we're wanting answers. No one can say, I mean, I've heard reports saying that level 1 will be December, and that's just terrifying. But while if I believe that, and I believe that that's the answer, it's going to be more terrifying than if I had to sit back and say, okay, so what is the question here? The question is, how am I going to deal with where I am right here, right now? And I don't know how to deal with it. So I'm going to reach out for help. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to live in the present. But I'm also going to say, I don't know. But responding with vehement anger and, kind of wrath against the government and spewing out all the stuff on social media, I don't think it necessarily adds to dealing with it. I think we need to express how we're feeling. But I think what we first need to do is say, well, how do I deal with it? What is the answer I can find internally? Because we're not going to get answers from government.
I think that obviously being caged, one needs some kind of release. And for some people, that is social media. The problem is when one is caged, or when one makes any rash decision through anger, one normally doesn't phrase oneself accurately.
Are you finding that your social media usage has increased now that you've been in lockdown?
It's definitely increased because there's more time in the day, in terms of I'm spending less time behind the steering wheel of my car. So the phone is always an arm's length away. So yes, I am consuming more of it, which is a bad thing.
Is it
in my mind?
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a very bad thing. I think that people are frustrated and they're venting that. And I think, listen, I do have some friends who are trying to see all the good, and they're making a point of the people that are doing these challenges where every day they're posting something they're grateful for, good news, things like that, which is fantastic. But for me, my feed is overwhelmed with frustration.
I think, and that's why I'm worried about social media consumption increasing, because the reality is that it sparks. So if it sparks anger within you, you post it, and it's almost like it's called I forget its name, but it's a psychological term where what you do is you just pass on the anger to other people. And that's what I'm finding social media. And that's why I had to kind of I've decided to share good things and talk about
Mm.
kind of what people are experiencing, because so much of it is that we are almost kind of fueling each other's anger as we go along. I mean, I've seen so many videos of, and right, people being treated horrendously by the police, and the amount of time that's in my feed, and it's almost stuff that I don't really want to know about, because I can't control it, and it's just making
Mm.
me angry. But what do? I just sit there with this anger stewing, and then I have no recourse. So what do? Is I then spew out some social media verbiage about it, and then someone else gets angry about it, and we almost doing, and that's my fear with social media, and that's why I kind of think that we do need to get to a point of acceptance that we are allowed to be angry, but we need to
Mm.
accept that this is the situation, and we need to be aware that just because we have an opinion doesn't mean that it's the right one. And
Mm. Yeah,
yeah,
Ricky Gervais has a lovely line, you know, just because you're offended doesn't mean you're right.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly. And I think
and
we need to be careful
we
of
all
what
have
we're doing
opinions.
to other people in what we're projecting. Is that how is what I'm posting helping someone else stay resilient? And I think that sometimes is my worry about social media is that, and I don't
Yeah.
want to be a part of that.
And I think that what you're doing is really awesome. I really do. The problem is obviously the conundrum of, yes, we do want, how do I help my neighbor? How do I help my friends? How do I help my, let's call it, social media community?
I want to wrap up, because this I could talk to you for hours, but I'm just aware there's only so much bandwidth that people have. So I think it's been really cool. Kind of what I've taken from the chat that we've had is that, there's been the importance of structure. There's been the importance of knowing your boundaries and being able to add what fuels you. For you, it's been fitness, for example, into your life, making sure that you're looking to find what you can add, and that you're making sure that you are finding, we are creatures of habit and routine, that you are finding that structure. We also need to be vulnerable and speak about the fact that we are necessarily feeling our best. And we also need to start being a bit kind of careful about how we are treating other people, in how we're talking on social media, what we're saying to other people. And then also that we start getting to a point of saying, well, there are no answers. How can I be
Mm.
in control of what I have that I can control? How can I focus on that rather than not being in control? So I've enjoyed kind of what we've bandied around. I think it's been very helpful, and
Yeah. And I think it's what we mentioned earlier on being self-forgiving and saying, all right, I'm taking a time out. Um, uh, potentially one can say, well, that's slightly juvenile, but it isn't. And escapism is real. We need it. And we certainly, in my mind, are kind of in a period where we have a lot less of that. Whether your escapism is, like, for me, it's watching sport, seeing friends. Now we don't have that currently. It's been nice to pick up a book more than I used to, and get it there. I'm very. I find myself at night being very. I feel like I'm in the '80s. I put my earphones on, and I just listen to music.
amazing.
I'm not reading while I'm doing it. I'm not flipping through my phone while I'm doing it. I'm purely listening to the music.
Yeah.
And I think that that's also been difficult to kind of be in the moment when you're self-reflecting constantly in the silence of one's self-isolation. To turn off that self-reflection is also really good, I think, and just try and be in the moment and try and enjoy it without overthinking it, because I think I've been overthinking far too many things, and I've certainly in the last, I would say, 10 days, 2 weeks, I still have an old nano pod. And I just, yeah, so that my phone is nowhere near me, and I just stick the earphones in,
Well,
and
amazing.
just listen to the music,
And
which has really helped.
that's exactly, I mean, I bring it back to resilience, because that's what my agenda is with these, is awareness, and mindfulness is exactly being in the present, and just enjoying the present for what it is so important. There are more hours in the day in the same room, and if we can just actually find moments where we actually just acknowledge that this is where I am and it's the perfect place to be because it's the only moment I have is right now. I think that's important. And I think that's one of the skills and probably what's making you resilient during this time is that you have found those things where you're able to just take a breath and go, okay, I'm going to escape, but it's a mindful, it's a present escape. It's a healthy escape.
This is where we are. And I guess at the end of it, one wants to get out of it fairly emotionally unscathed or as emotionally strong or potentially stronger if it's possible. We can't be our own, can't be our own enemies here. We've got enough issues. We can't be an extra issue.
Yeah. Look after ourselves. That's first priority. It's like in the plane, make sure your mask's on first and then look after everyone else.
Yeah, it's a good analogy. Very good.
I just thought of it now, all by myself. Well, I want to say thank you for being on air with me and for taking this time out. I know you are busy working and I'm taking time out of your working day. I've really enjoyed this. I think massively insightful, and I think you have an amazing brain, and I could talk to you for hours about this kind of stuff. So thank you.
I don't know if I said anything helpful at all. I don't know.
Do you know what? It's not about being helpful. It's about the fact is that we're in this together. And I was reading somebody posted today that we're not in the same boat, but we're in the same storm. And thank you for giving me a glimpse of your boat, because someone else might just need to hear, I can do this too. I just need to go and sit in the room and put in my earphones and just take a break. And that could change a life. So let's, that's why we're doing this. And I just want to say thank you for being a part of it.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for thinking of me. Well done on what you're doing. I think that you're going to affect so many people in a positive way, and the world's a better place with that. Yeah, it's terrific.
Thanks.
So keep it going. Keep doing what you're doing, Clive.
Yeah, well, everyone's going to see my lockdown hair get longer and longer until I look like a lampshade. Karl, thank you. You've been amazing. I've enjoyed our time together. It's been good to reconnect with you after not seeing you for a while. And yeah, I will chat to you soon, I hope. But thank you for what you have shared today. I really appreciate it.